what I'm going to do is to follow the model of the earlier panel and ask each of our three panelists to take a brief moment and to talk in a few lines about their work, so that we have a context for their projects. We're here today with Jun Lee, with Neo Chen, and with Jessie at Yutong Zheng. So if it's okay, I'm going to ask Lee if you would perhaps start us off.
Yeah, so my project, generally speaking, my project provides interactive, unique tweeting experience. And I'm researching in how to identify interactive system artwork in the way of cybernetic thinking. And also I'm researching in how to engage remote participants in a different way and share the interactive experience around the results of artworks. Yeah.
Thank you. Jessie?
So my project is actually using a technology to address the Chinese concept qi. I know a lot of you probably have seen this from Hollywood movies, and this is actually how I got started with my research, because I noticed some movies actually have some misunderstandings of this concept. So and also I understand it because it is kind of a slippery concept, because it doesn't have a fixed meaning. It is highly dependent on the context it is used in. So I thought, because this is also, so this is because I realized, I guess the dominant influence right now in media is still like very English oriented. So I think like I could use this research as a opportunity to address some of these like non-English, misunderstood concepts. So I use this concept, and this is also actually a journey for me to like realize and also recognize some of the things that I fail to recognize because of my cultural background, because like as someone from Chinese culture, I tend to have assumptions. So I use technology. I worked with a Tai Chi practitioner, and we actually like talked about like how we could use haptic vest to address like how to I guess express like this kind, because on Qi, like in Tai Chi is like, so okay, so the performer that I work with, like his specific school of Tai Chi doesn't like really talk about Qi, because it's actually a very abstract concept that I just mentioned earlier. So, but they do focus on this kind of internal energy. So I used this haptic vest to, just like capture or encompass some of these misunderstandings and like have a discussion with people about these kind of like philosophies, such as Qi behind Tai Chi, and some of this, like people, some of the things that people like actually have like misunderstanding of. Yeah.
Thanks.
Right. So, right. Hi, I'm Neo. So the title of my thesis paper is called, sorry. It's called Digital Fashion Metamorphosis, Fold and Unfold, with a creative outcome titled Neo-Metamorphosis. So Neo-Metamorphosis is an origami-inspired digital fashion show that includes 6 looks made with photogrammetric origami. So with the use of 3D image-based photogrammetry technique, the handmade origami was captured and turned into digital replica. And later on in this 3D software interface, the digitized origami was draped onto the digital body to create a digital fashion show that presents a sensational and visual experience. And this work aims to explore the potential in transformative materiality and look into the future of digital fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pairing your introduction with a classic internet Zoom moment with your cat. So I wanted to take a slightly different approach than the last panel and to ask questions which I feel threads these projects together, hopefully in interesting ways. So for all of your projects, technology plays an essential role in a kind of performance of some sort. I wanted to ask how you would characterize the relationship between the human actors and interactors that are part of your work, and or even just kind of human physicality in terms of bodies, and the technology actors, the kind of those performance mediators or those performance enablers or collaborators or helpers, however you would kind of describe what role technology is playing. So for this one, I was hoping that that Jessie, you would be able to start and just give us a little bit of a sense of how you see what you see the role of technology being in this relationship and in your work.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a very good question for my project, because the reason why I chose technology instead of any other tools to address the concept of qi, well, other than the fact that I'm a digital future student, is because I realized because there's the literal translation, so the word translation for qi is actually kind of limiting, because some concepts just there are just some words in a culture that doesn't exist in another. So for example, there are also like concepts in English that can't really be directly translated into Chinese. So I thought, since qi is actually a concept very related to the body, because I guess okay, this is going to be a gross generalization, but it is like in the body, I guess it's the flow of energy, but also there are also like other meanings, but I'm not going to like make it more complex. So I decided to use haptic vest because I think it can actually create a embodied experience for people. So instead of using words to explain a concept, I think allowing people to directly experience it with their body can actually have a more impactful understanding. So that's essentially how technology plays a part in my project. And it's also a very interesting relationship to work with the Tai Chi practitioner, because like something as flexible as Qi, actually technology has its limitation to address it, because I am using a pre-manufactured haptic vest with like 40 haptic points on the body. So there are actually quite some limitation. So it's very interesting to, I guess, like to communicate with the Tai Chi practitioner and also like negotiate this kind of, how I would envision it and how he sees it. So yeah.
Thanks. That's particularly cool to kind of think about this like flow, this flow of design and information between your practitioner, between the technology itself, like what grammar you actually have to even work with it in terms of that, and then your own work in terms of your design goals and your like hopes for this particular type of like understanding and experience in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if I could ask the same question or a similar question to Neil, because you have. I mean, it's interesting to kind of see how that technology. Technology kind of takes a different place within the work that you're doing, particularly because your outcome is entirely in, for lack of a better word, virtual space.
Yeah, sure. In the traditional fashion industry, there has always been this need for like fashion show, fashion showroom, lookbook, etc., and to showcase the garments and accessories as a means to better exhibit the look and offer the customers and the viewers a clear idea of what the wearable piece will look like on a body. However, in my thesis project, the digital body doesn't only serve as the supporter of the origami garments, and to echo with what James Harris would describe in for the physical fabric, the kinetic relationship between physical fabric and physical body. In my project, the digital body also acts as the interactor to enable this similar kinetic relationship with the digitized origami. So then the metamorphosis is happening from the beginning when draping the photogrammetric origami onto the digital body, and also happened during the constant change of form along with the movement of the digital body.
Very cool. As somebody who also works in this kind of in-between space between virtual objects and physical objects, and that kind of interplay and like blend between them, I find that kind of fluidity that you're describing is really is really interesting. And I am going to ask a follow-up question, which is going to cause you to probably reiterate a lot of the same points. But before doing that, I wanted to ask Lee if he could speak about the role technology is playing as an actor within his work.
Yeah. That's a wonderful question. Thank you, Cindy. So, so for me as a technologist, I think I do believe technology plays a very important role. A lot of my work shows at the intersection of art and technology. So back to my point, technology definitely contribute a lot to our relationship, to our life, and to our behavior, and how technology changed our normal life. Yeah, so basically that's my thoughts.
Yeah, because I thought for your project too, like yours is very situated in these like cybernetic relationships as well. So even just on like thinking about it on a conceptual level, like you're almost thinking about these interactions. I don't want to simplify it by saying thinking about them as a computer or as a technology or on a computational sense, but you are definitely approaching them from kind of a systems viewpoint, which I think is really quite interesting and unique.
Yeah, so as the purpose of this thesis research, the reason I choose cybernetic, I'm researching in cybernetic, is I picked up some a very particular theory from cybernetic called first order and second order and third order cybernetic relationship. So I'm trying to apply and map those concepts, for example, inputs, outputs, control, feedback, and the conversation, and map it into the interactive art. And for me to create a more like innovative and creative or interactive artworks, and I can make the interaction more efficiency and let the behavior become more interesting, and let audience feel they are like real played with those interactive artworks. So basically having fun with the interactive artworks.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I was wondering if I could return to Neo really quickly, in part because, I think that you started to touch upon some other things that I want to ask everybody in your last response. So during the pandemic, we've necessarily seen a lot of previously physical interactions and experiences move into a virtual space with varying levels of success. You know, some things I think we're starting to sort out, we're starting to figure out, and other things we're still desperately trying to figure out different modes and different ways to make it work. So what I wanted to ask was whether or not you saw a fundamental difference between work in physical space versus virtual space, and feel free to completely destroy that binary. I don't mean to necessarily set it up, except that's easier to ask the question that way. So, and more specifically, how do you see your work as being part of a hybrid space that bridges both, or just how do you kind of think about that physical virtual relationship in terms of the work that you're creating?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. I have to say that the constraint of the current COVID-19 pandemic, it's stimulating this urge for fashion brands and designers to look into 3D technology and digital space for fashion creation and ways to display their works. And that is also the reason that inspired me to situate my thesis project at the intersection of fashion and technology. And to apply technology with fashion is not something entirely new. It has been happening in the past few decades. Like Hossein Chatayan, Iris van Herpen, they've all been worked closely with technology. So because fashion is, as a creative industry, it always desire this fresh ideas, and the pandemic is just boosting that kind of need, and also like forcing the fashion industry to further explore the potential of digital fashion. So I feel like the core idea of both physical and virtual fashion experience is to showcase their creative works. So, but the digital space does offer a more capacity in terms of constructing abstract shapes, or and also provides less limitation to this practicability and wearability of digital garments. So in long term, I don't think we're gonna dive into like a fully digital fashion era, but I definitely see a hybrid fashion scene holds a huge potential in the building of the fashion industry. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting to see so much work. This is such an exciting area to work in, and I know we've shared short conversations surrounding that as well. Just how much innovation and work is going on within this space that kind of brings it from being very, understandably focused on physicality and materiality, but then also is really started to kind of tendril out and branch out into experimenting with the virtual space. It's your project really sits in, I think, this area that just seems to have so much energy right now.
All right, thank you.
Jessie, could I ask? Actually, no, sorry. I think I'm gonna ask Lee to go next, if that's okay. I'm trying to switch up the order, and I'm losing track of folks overall. So just to quickly reiterate the question, what I was hoping you could talk a bit about is how you kind of negotiate this oftentimes very problematic boundary between kind of the material physical world and virtual digital spaces. Where do you see your work intersecting with that, or where do you see the interesting kind of interplay there?
Yeah, so that's really a really great question. So that's exactly one of my research question is how to engage remote participants in a different way and share the interactive experience around the result of artworks. As you know, right now we are facing the pandemic. A lot of our interactive media industry has been destroyed totally. So a lot of project events, concert has been moved to online. and nobody knows what will be the future will be like. So at the beginning of my thesis stage, I'm trying to creatively solve this question. So because nobody will know what will be the future, what's the future will be like. So instead of like doing the real physical installation, as I mentioned before, I'm a creative technologist, do a lot of interactive artworks. So instead of like doing a real physical installation, I decided to put my artwork online. And because I also want to engage the remote participants, like we are having the Zoom call, no matter where you are, you can like we are talking to each other. So instead of doing that, I'm decided to put my installation. I call it virtual installation. I place it in your phone. So that's why I trying to make a virtual installation and provide an interactive tweeting experience, so that if you are sending a tweet and you are actually playing around this interactive artwork, so you will see the results, and somebody else saw this outcome, they can also join into the interactive experience and having fun with this virtual installation. So that was that project breaks the boundary of where you are, and no matter which time zone you are in. And it's also a time-based interaction, and you can like having see those tweets after like 1 day or 2 days, and it will last forever. So that's how I solved this question problem.
I think what's so great about your work as well is that I hate the term digitally native, but it's so like it needs to live online. Like it seems like that's its home. Even as it kind of has these it's also on your phone. It also involves human actors and participants, but just kind of at its core, you can't picture how it would happen if it didn't happen on the platforms and in the form that it happened right now. So
Exactly.
it's really nice that you found that spot that a lot of people don't necessarily think about as being a performative space, or an interaction based space, or a space to create this kind of artwork. I wanted to ask Jessie if she could speak about this kind of intersection between kind of physical spaces and virtual spaces. I mean, in particular, I know because we've been trying to figure out ways for you to best actually like instantiate your project and your work. And I know that the pandemic has complicated that in significant ways. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
Mm-hmm. I was actually exploring this virtual experience, I guess, because so I didn't like pursue it further because of like technical limitations, but my future steps, I guess, for this project going forward is actually if I want to be able to have the Tai Chi performer, for example, in his own space, and then somebody else experiencing this haptic experience probably in another physical space, maybe like halfway across the globe. So like they can actually be networked together, but while this Tai Chi practitioner is performing in his own space, that data can get collected and then translated, manipulated by this gesture recognition system, and then and that can be networked to somebody else from like different places, different countries, and they can despite their physical location, can also like have this kind of cross-cultural experience. So I guess like in that sense, virtual experience, I don't know if this is virtual, but like this kind of like remote experience is very important, I think, for this project. because that can actually amplify this sense of cross-cultural communication that I intend to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And I think that even that your ability or your work to try to translate some of these very like intangible physical senses that surround Tai Chi performance through the haptic vest, it just kind of opens up that door to qualities that we often think about as being very ground in like the quote unquote real world, you know, tied to physical bodies and physical performances. And, you know, even though the translation you're doing currently is over kind of a short distance, it's really cool to think about the potential for translating that into something where people are perhaps in remote locations and can share those aspects of to share that connection in translating that experience.
Mm-hmm, for sure. It can also create a sense of community like all over the globe.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think right now, because we have the interpersonal communication channels and the intercultural communication channels that we have right now are, you know, they seem so limited in a lot of cases because we're, you know, talking over Zoom and we don't have that kind of physical connection. It really makes a project like this that, you know, where you almost long to have that haptic vest to have that like physical connection with somebody else. It just, I think, makes it really poignant because you don't even have to directly speak to like our desire for that touch, for that connection, and particularly in exploring these aspects of cultural intercommunication that are so that have these intangible aspects to them that are hard to communicate. It's really I think it becomes really important.
Mm-hmm.